Hello, my name is Michael Stoler. So we're in the spring of 2010. Allegedly, we're out of the recession. Allegedly, the world is getting better in the office market, but I'm not certain. And I'm not certain because my four guests today have mixed views on the state of the market. So I'd like them to express their opinions on the state of the market. My guests include, I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Mark Boissy from Cassidy Turley.
Chairman
Chairman of the New York region.
Okay. Matt Van Buren, Executive Managing Director at CB Richard Ellis. Mark Weiss, Vice Chairman at Newmark Knight Frank. And last but not least, my friend Joe Harbert, the COO of the New York region of Cushman & Wakefield. So Joe, you've been on the show a number of times. So how do you look at the spring of 2010 in the office market? I want the truth. As they would say, in the trade, I want the emis. I really want to know what the truth is.
The truth is there's uncertainty in the marketplace. We had a big uptick in activity in the fourth quarter, and January and February have been slow. They're very active compared to last year.
But last year was a depression.
Well, we're up 61% in leasing. We've had a number of months where there's been no sublet space put back on the marketplace. And leasing activity for February is average. It's the average of the last 7 Februaries.
Yeah, but how do we look at the future, Mr. Weiss?
A lot of people within our industry are looking at the future with rose-colored glasses. And I think Joe just touched on that there's been a lot of leasing activity. A lot of transactions have happened. But people are only looking at the transactions like a cheerleader in many instances, in that a company rents some office space. It hits everybody's statistics. All the major firms seem to have outsourced their statistical tabulation to CoStar. So CoStar shows a lease of 100,000 square feet of space as absorption. What they're neglecting to look at is when the back end of that transaction, after the move takes place and the space hits the market, that it's oftentimes negative absorption. And beyond that, they're looking at this 100,000 square feet of space in terms of the criminally branded 27% revenue loss factor, whereas the space they're leaving behind has perhaps a 22% loss factor. So we're in a time where there was a pause or paralysis, lots of leasing, but behind that is going to be a flood of space, some real, some imaginary, that's going to diminish the feeling of optimism in the market.
But isn't it also true that many of the tenants who are taking space are taking less space than they had previously? They laid off employees, they've cut down a little bit? I mean,
Tenants are trying to be efficient with the way they utilize their space these days, that's for sure.
But there is a lot of activity. There's a lot of activity amongst tenants over 100,000 square feet and above. And just this year, you have 6 deals in the first couple of months of the year. 4 of them are new leases. Only 2 are renewals.
And Mark, your thoughts?
I'm still stuck on that. Everyone's defining the marketplace in terms of square footage, and the landlords have over-leveraged themselves. So there's a segment of the market where you just can't do business. That tenants have responded to the markup on space by really innovating their way to using a lot less of it. And it's now a cultural thing, like it is in Europe, to use much less office space. And as a case in point, we've represented the French publisher, Hachette Philippaki Magazine Group. And we rented 122,000 square feet of space for them. It was a sublease from Time Inc. So that was a sign of life, another first quarter 100,000 square foot deal.
It's a nice lease.
Very nice lease.
But they're leaving behind 277,000 rentable square feet per their lease. But when now that space hits the market and the landlord where they're leaving bumps that up to a market loss factor, it's 295,000 square feet of space. So I'm very fearful, Michael, that the other shoe hasn't dropped. And I think that's going to have an enormously suppressing impact on rents.
It's interesting. Carl Weisbrod's been on the show a couple of times, and I was downtown. I'm at 1010 Winds on the weekend, and they're at 345 Hudson.
Right.
And the building, major renovations and everything took a long time, and everybody was moving that to Hudson Square a couple of years ago. There's so much space leased in Hudson Square, and then I went up to Carl's office and I said, "What's happening?" He says, I'm not getting my $45 a square foot anymore. I'm not getting, I'm giving away space at and they don't have any mortgages. I mean, the church had no problem, but, there's some problems over there in the Hudson Square market, and people like being in Tribeca.
I think though that little sub-market of those Hudson Square, Tribeca, Chelsea markets, 111.
I think the Chelsea market's a different
but
market.
There's a subset of cool buildings where people have innovative workplaces that typically attract tenants who are not financial services tenants that have held their value better than anything else in the marketplace.
But that's $40 a square foot. I mean, Hudson Square is not the meat market. I think the meat market spaces, the Chelsea market is probably much higher, right?
It's more expensive to rent space in a building like that than it is at Park and 51st Street. Yeah. It's just hard to imagine.
Yeah. I had Emmanuel Stern on the show, and he says, he had all these ads about, I'm only 7 minutes away, you have these great benefits and all that. How do you guys see Jersey, especially with the depository trust deal, which was basically $49 million in incentives over there, if you look at it that way?
Every time there's a major corporate move within Manhattan, you have to consider alternatives outside of Manhattan. Nobody wants to leave, but people have to be financially responsible. It's one of the nice things about this dramatic fall off in volume and rent and all that stuff is that Manhattan has become much more affordable. And as it's more affordable, companies have the ability to hire good people. And with those good people, they can grow their businesses. So this is almost a self-policing development. Lower the price, companies can flourish. Companies can flourish, companies can grow. So some of this growth is going to happen because of the dynamic, unique nature of New York and the type of people that are always attracted to New York. We're our own worst enemies by pricing up the market and driving our human capital, our intellectual capital, away from New York.
We think net effective rents have really hit the bottom. We think they hit the bottom at the end of the third quarter last year. And they're starting to creep back up.
So you believe we've reached the bottom?
Yes.
I don't think you believe that.
No, I believe rents are going to go up, but for not the same reason that you believe rents are going to go up. We came out of this recession quickly, given how deep it was and how scary it was, through a massive infusion of debt. That debt hasn't gone anywhere yet, and the only way to make that go away is to let inflation work its magic. And unfortunately, inflation is going to run its way through rents too. So rents are going to go up for the wrong reasons because everything in our society is going to go up.
You used to be on the other side of the coin. You were on the dark side. When you were at Studley, you represented the tenants as opposed to the landlords.
Well, I still
he
don't.
still does.
I don't represent any landlords.
Oh,
He's a tenant
you're on the dark side.
I'm a tenant advocate.
Oh, you're a tenant advocate.
Period.
So you're the tenant advocate over here. So as a tenant, what kind of deals can I get from landlords today? I'm not talking about rents. I'm talking about type of concessions, work letters. What's out there? I'm a 30,000 square foot. I'm not a 100,000 square foot.
Right.
Okay, I'm a 30,000 square foot tenant. I want to go into Midtown. Tell me my best deal. I'm not asking the building. I want to know the best deal I could get.
You could structure a rent in a pretty good building starting at $45 a foot, and you can get a perfectly good, nice installation built for you with absolutely no risk or cost, and still get 6 or 8 months of free rent on top of that. So in answer to what Mark spoke about before, a landlord, to get $1, will have to spend $4. Now he'll get that $1 a year for 15 years. But to spend 4 years worth of rent to get a tenant shows a pretty compelling market. And that's where we are right now.
It looks like the world is maybe getting better, even though Mr. Weiss is the pessimist. Normally I'm the pessimist. They call me Dr. Doom and Gloom. And the spring may be pretty good for the office market, right?
I think May, June, July is going to be good. We're still in winter, Michael.
Okay, I'd like to thank Mark, Matt, Mark, and Joe. See you next week.